Okay, you're all set. We're live.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, good evening, everyone. We'll get things started.
Okay, you're all set. We're live.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Everyone hear me okay?
You're welcome.
Can you hear me okay? Good evening, everyone. We'll get things started.
Okay, you're all set. We're live.
Okay, appreciate it. Everyone hear me okay?
Getting feedback.
Yeah, I had YouTube going. Okay. All right, tonight is Monday, January 10th, 2022. Happy New Year. My name is Daniel Johnson, Chair of the West Hartford Pedestrian and Bicycle Commission. And we are having our meeting virtually today at 7 p.m. Again, January 10th, 2022. If you need to call in, the phone number for calling in is 1-408-418-9388. Access code is 2349-391-4359. I'll repeat that, 1-408-418-9388. Access code is 2349-391-4359. So first on the agenda, we'll call order of attendance. Colin Gillespie.
Present, Colin Gillespie.
Great. And if you could unmute your microphone because I'm looking at a different document in the video. Dan Firestone. Perfect. Daniel Johnson, that's myself. Denise Gutierrez.
Present.
Jill Morawski. Ken Livingston.
Here.
Paul Hogan.
Here.
Ryan Abrega.
Here.
And Sandy Fry.
Here.
Great. We have almost full attendance, so we do have a quorum for tonight's meeting. First on the agenda is approval of the previous meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes? Any questions or corrections to the minutes as they are?
No.
All right, if no further edits or questions, I'll leave the call-in user.
Acceptance.
Just give 1 second for the call-in user here. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining.
Second.
Okay, 1 second, folks. For those of you on YouTube, meeting access code is calling user 3. Just going to repeat some information just for those trying to dial in. So the phone number to dial in, 1-408-418-9388. Access code is 2349-391-4359. And we had a caller join. Do you mind stating your name, calling user 3? Might need to unmute
This is
yourself.
Ethan Frankel. I'm not sure what caller and user I am, but it's 4528 is the number.
All right, thanks, Ethan. That is you. I have another access code. There seems to be some cross information going on here. So alternatively, access code 2558-161-8303. Again, that's 2558-161-8303. Okay. We were discussing the minutes. Just jump back to the agenda. Any edits or changes to the minutes? Jill Morawski is in attendance as well. Note that. Thank you for joining, Jill. Any edits or questions for the minutes for December? Okay. If no one has questions or comments, we can move to approve the minutes as they stand. Anyone may say nay to the minutes as they are. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And anyone have a nay response to the minutes as they stand? No. All right, so the minutes are approved, 7:14 p.m. One second. Okay. Next on the agenda, we did send a letter to town council on the end of December, December 27th. Sorry, December 29th. This was our annual letter as a commission to the town to highlight things we've worked on with the town, including North Main Street Road Diet, the Trout Brook Trail, review of a number of designs for roadway improvements, pedestrian accessibility improvements, and crosswalks, as well as some things we want to look at going into the new year. So that letter was sent on the 29th. We haven't got a response yet back from the town council, but a great way to end 2021 was to have this full recap to the town. We covered an incredible amount of work as a commission. Within that, the agenda for today, you can see a copy of the email that was sent. And if you have any questions on that, please review or reach out to us as well. Any questions on the letter sent to the town? We did invite town council to join this meeting and future meetings, so we'll follow up for engagement on that. There are a couple new appointments going on as well, so understanding the lack of response at the moment. Any questions from the commission? Any questions from the public? Okay. Again, that is on the agenda for today's meeting. You can review that letter that was sent to town council. And, in attendance today, we have Greg Summer, town engineer, and he's going to review some of the engineering updates as well as a couple other big ticket items. So really glad to have an engineering focused meeting today. So Greg Summer, I'll let you introduce yourself and take the floor as we move to the next item, which will just some updates you have on any roadway trail projects coming on, and then we can move into the North Main Street Road Diet, the Complete Streets Annual Report that's in progress, the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program, and we did have some questions on 920 Farmington Avenue. I was able to review the town in a zoning meeting, but we might have some questions as a commission for that as well. Greg, floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Daniel, and good evening. Greg Summer, Assistant Town Engineer. Happy to be here tonight, and just wanted to give you some quick updates on projects that we have going on. Obviously, you're familiar with the New Park Complete Streets project that's currently being designed by our engineering staff. Brennan is working on that. Probably looking like maybe in the construction, possibly end of 22, but most likely in 23 is probably what we're looking at right now. But that'll be a real positive project for that area. A nice streetscape project from New Britain Avenue all the way up to a little past Oakwood Avenue, New Park. So looking forward to that one. Working through the design now on that project. Burn Street Bridge, that project is in final design. We're getting pretty close, working through some permitting and some easement issues on that one. But that's hopefully going to be into construction this year as well. So that will be disruptive to the neighborhood on Burn Street, but a much better project in that area. And then the Trout Brook Trail, obviously, phase 5 is under construction now. We got to jump on that in the fall. Sections from Farmington Avenue up to Fern Street. So they actually paved a biker course towards the end of November, early December. We're going to let it sit over the winter, come back and do some final paving, some landscaping, some finishing type items to wrap that up. So that should be in the spring. Phase 5 would be open and usable. Phase
Greg,
6.
just 1 second there. Sorry. Call-in user 4. Do you mind stating your name? You just went on mute. I just want to make sure we capture that. The most recent caller.
Sorry, that might be me, Ethan Frankel again, because I was having trouble with the audio. So maybe I don't know if I'm in as user 3 or user 4. I apologize.
Okay. Thanks, Ethan. All right. Greg, continue. You left on the Trout Brook Trail update there.
Yep, so Trout Brook Trail Phase 6, looking to get that started in 2022 as well. Probably spring or summer, that'll get kicked off. And that'll be the piece from Fern all the way up to Asylum Avenue. Actually Duffield, but then we're looking to try and couple that last bit to get us all the way up to Asylum Avenue. We're calling that Phase 7. So hopefully that'll be completed in 2022 as well. So expecting some big progress in the Trout Brook Trail. We'll have really the connection from Park Road all the way up to Asylum, and then from Jackson down to New Park, basically, with just Phase 3 being that last piece that's missing. That's currently being designed. Probably looking at construction either tail end of 22, just getting started, or in spring of 23, most likely. So that would wrap this up. It's been a long time coming, and we're pleased to see some progress and get that trail project completed. So that's a big one. I'll pause there. If anybody has any questions on some of the projects I just touched on, I'll have to field those before we move through to some of the other agenda items.
One question I have, Greg, is when does the engineering team, I believe coming up is when you guys start looking at different phases for roadway improvements. When do you have that list in a draft form that we can review just to see if there's any major items that we could help with?
Yep, absolutely. So that would be and I believe we're slated to attend the March meeting.
Yep.
Typically what we're doing right now, we just completed our road rating. That happens every November, December. The newest ratings have actually been posted on our website. So we're starting to come up with a tentative list. We have a meeting scheduled with some of the utility companies, trying to coordinate any of their work they have going on, making sure that we're having to pave a road that they need to replace a water main on, tear it up soon after it gets paved. So that coordination meeting will happen later this month. From there, we'll finalize our list. The intent is to present at the March meeting, to share that information with the commission, get some feedback, and then obviously look at whichever roads need bicycle facilities,
Yep.
opportunities to enhancements. We'll certainly be evaluating those and looking for your input.
Okay. So as a commission, we have planned March, again, engineering updates, but also particular to roads coming up for paving and new design. And one more item, Greg, the Mountain Road to Albany Avenue intersection, any updates on that of timing of when that would happen? And again, the town had to file for complete streets exception because the commission didn't approve of it due to the removal of sidewalks.
Yep, so that project is in final design now. Also hoping to get that bid over the winter, early spring. So construction would start in 2022. Pretty much take us through the construction season, and then most likely some follow-up punch list items, landscaping in the spring of 23. That's what we're currently targeting for right now. We finally just got over a little bit of a hurdle with an easement for some utilities. Get that resolved, and we're progressing with the design now.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. So Greg, if you don't mind, let's talk about what's next on the agenda here is the North Main Street Road Diet. I know you work closely with VHB, the consultants, and as a commission and the public as well. Mid-marker update, a survey was sent out the end of last year, the last, I think, 2 or 3 months of 2021, a new survey, and you did get a number of responses. So talk to us a little about the North Main Street Road Diet on an engineering standpoint, where you see this road diet on a preliminary level, but how that, what some of the responses from the survey and how are we looking at those as a town?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. So we've been working with the consultant right now. We've been capturing traffic counts, measuring travel times, gathering any crash reports from the police. As you mentioned, we did conduct a survey in late November. So far, we've got about 1,900 responses, which is a really good response rate. We're pretty pleased with that. Gotten some great feedback, not only to the direct questions, but comments that were also entered. So we're reviewing those with our consultant. A couple of things that we're hearing that kind of resonated in those comments. There have been some issues with traffic signals along the corridor, causing some backups and delays, particularly during the afternoon peak hour. So that's something in the next several weeks we'll be looking to try and improve those. So come up with some modified signal timing plans. We're going to give those a try and see if we can't improve that a little bit just by making some fine tweaks to the traffic signals, primarily at Fern and Asylum. Would be where those improvements would occur. And the other thing we've heard is the confusion or misuse of the two-way left turn lane. So we have a pamphlet that we've put together, kind of giving just a basic educational piece for the public, recognizing that it's somewhat new to this area. People may not be familiar with how to use them, how to use them properly and safely. So we're going to send that out. We sent it out previously. We're going to send it out again through the town listserv and hopefully get some additional traction on maybe social media, just to try and get that word out. But that was one of the comments that we saw a number of times from the survey, is that people were using it to bypass stop traffic, or they weren't sure when they could enter the turn lane to begin their turn, that sort of thing. So we're hoping to kind of clarify that with the educational material that we'll be sending out.
Okay. Someone just called in, just to interrupt you quick, Greg. The user that called in, you mind just identifying yourself?
Yeah, I think that's me. I finally made it in. This is Tony Sharolis with BCO and Transport Hartford.
Hey, Tony, thank you. Hey, do you know which access code worked for you to get in? Do you mind sharing?
I finally shook Jay down and found one. It was, let me take a look here. The two codes, the phone number was 650-479-3208, and then the first code was 255-816-18, or 255-816-18303 pound. And then when it said, what is your meeting ID number, it was 997-96358 pound.
Repeat that last number, Tony, if you don't mind. 997.
The last one was 997-96358 pound.
963-858 pound.
997-96358 pound.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Tony. So I just want to repeat that to anyone listening in. on the YouTube channel. If you need to call in and join the discussion, the number to dial in is 650-479-3208. The meeting ID is 255-816-18303#. The access ID is 997-96358#. Thanks, Tony.
Hey, Greg, the backups from the North Main diet, those came from, you learned of those through studies or through the surveys? And if it was through
A
the,
little of both, obviously, field observations that we were conducting, we saw that as well as hearing it from the public. Some of the also things we're hearing is issues with some of the side streets, mainly Fern and Asylum, because of those signals. Potentially giving some motors from the side streets challenges. So that's something that we want to work at, look at a little bit more. Obviously want to, move traffic down the North Main Street, but we also don't want to, impact the motorists on Fern Street and Asylum either. So it's a balancing act, and we're trying to figure out what the best distribution of timing would be, really to optimize everything. So that's what we're gonna be working on over the next couple of weeks, is trying to implement those and get things moving a little bit smoother.
perfect, thank you.
Greg, question. You mentioned the survey. My understanding is the survey is closed, correct? The second survey that was sent out. So there's a preliminary survey, then VHB sent out another survey end of last year. That survey is closed, correct?
No, it's still open. We're kind of letting the results continue to filter in. It's pretty much plateaued at this point. We've been at just over 1,900 responses for quite some time now. I imagine that when the press release, we might see a little bit more of an uptick. I don't know if it's going to really impact the results at this point. There's a pretty good amount of data there, but the results are posted on the website as well. They got updated today. The town's website was down for a few days last week, so we just got them up there this morning. So I invite you to take a look at that. It's if you go to www.westhartfordct.gov/road diet, all one word, it'll take you right to the page. And there's a whole wealth of information. I'm sure you're probably familiar with it. You've been there before. But down to the bottom, there's a section, Get Involved. It has the survey results from the initial survey, which we did at the prior to the trial, just to kind of get everybody's pretty good amount of what their initial thoughts were, impressions of the road diet trial, and then this second study, now that the survey, now that we have the trial in place, and then immediately below that is the link to the survey. So if people haven't already completed it, they're welcome to continue to participate and provide comments.
Great. So I'm on the West Hartford Pedestrian and Bicycle Commission site. Just for those who are able to see this, this is the town website, and then the North Main Street Road Diet is this URL up here. But again, westhartfordct.gov, and you can find your way to North Main Street Road Diet. Reason I asked the question, Greg, and just maybe touch base with VHP and the town website. So at the bottom where it says Get Involved, I do see where we had the initial survey and the responses are here, and then a summary of the 1,900 responses can be viewed here, and then this is here. It's good that this is continuing. It doesn't. Does it consider having different snapshots at point in time versus just an ongoing survey have any marker?
I'm not sure I completely. I think it just rolls. All the data is compiled the same, so we'll just continually access. We have a link that we can hit to view those responses. You're seeing just a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
that was from the other day, with 1,914 responses. I think we've gotten a couple more since then, but,
Okay. The reason I ask is, like, as you make traffic improvements, right? If you're updating the timing on Asylum, or or Fern, that these responses may change in a different direction. So as the town makes improvements to the road diet in its process, we might not be getting we'll be getting the feedback, but it's going to be compiled with the road diet as existed prior to those improvements, right?
it'd be mixed, a little bit of both. I mean, I think we have a pretty good baseline of what, the public's feeling. If you look through the responses, about 66% of the people are in favor of the road diet. So I'm sure you're happy to hear that. And then there's another 9% that aren't sure, and 25% are saying no. So about a quarter of the population is against it. And then the majority is either unsure, or 66% of people are saying go for it. So it seems like it's on the right track. Most of the feedback we've heard has been positive. As far as next steps go, we'll be looking to set up a final public info meeting sometime this spring, which would be one additional opportunity for anybody to provide feedback, comments. So Daniel, to your point, that might be the opportunity, with some changes to the timings of the signals. Maybe public perception change a little bit and say, hey, you know what, those backups really have been addressed. Maybe some of those no's become yeses. It may fluctuate a little bit, but then from there, the consultant ultimately would be preparing a recommendation and present that to the town council for a final decision. So
Okay.
that's kind of the timing.
Great. And I want to just walk through this for everybody interested in North Main Street Road Diet, and then I'll open up to commission members first on the North Main Street Road Diet, and then I'll open up to the public for comments on the North Main Street Road Diet. So if you want to get to the survey results that I just showed, you can easily Google West Hartford, Connecticut, North Main Street Road Diet. It does a good job of tagging you to the site. This is the North Main Street Road Diet site. At the bottom of the page, you can review all existing information there. But then as you jump down to get involved, here's where the surveys come in. The first survey with 460 responses is here with a hyperlink. The second survey, which I just showed, is a link here. This seems to be a survey that's just a point in time. So something to download for records if you're looking to keep a snapshot of point in time. It doesn't seem to be live. And then if you haven't taken a survey already and you'd like to provide your input on the North Main Street Road Diet, this last sentence again has a hyperlink, and you could take the survey here as well. So I'm going to pause here. Any questions from the commission to Greg on the North Main Street Road Diet? I know Ryan and a couple others already asked questions, but I want to open up the commission first, and then I'll open up to the public on the North Main Street Road Diet for Greg Summer. Commission?
It's Jill. I just wanted to ask, when are you doing the traffic count and speeding speeds? Have you already collected that data? Are you doing it intermittently?
We did that in the fall. I believe it was like early November. We did some traffic counts, not only at intersections, but we've done a couple of speed and volume counts at critical points, not only on the North Main Street corridor, but also on Southwark Drive and Mountain Road, just to see if there was any diversion and if there was any changes to the traffic on either of those parallel arterial roadways.
And what did you find?
We're still looking at that data. I don't think there was a tremendous amount of diversion. As far as speeds, I think, you know, on North Main Street, it certainly has, we've seen a reduction in speeds. I don't know that it's, you know, Troutbrook and Mountain probably haven't been influenced, you know, in either direction. But no, we have seen North Main Street, you know, the speeds that are down. Just, but that, you know, for the most part, definitely during the peak hours, when there is that congestion, not able to go any faster than the car in front of you. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's really helps improve safety along that corridor.
And how, if anywhere, are you calculating in pandemic traffic patterns? Because you can't really compare this to the early measures you did, right?
Yeah, it's a fair question. That's something that one of our consultant will be working on. We do have some baseline numbers, and then, you know, they can also adjust those numbers based on what we're seeing from the DOT. You know, as far as what the traffic patterns are, what the, you know, how those volumes have been influenced by the pandemic, and when we're seeing those volumes return. You know, I think right now they're fairly close to what they have been. It shifted a little bit. Used to have a big peak in the morning, and then it would return in the afternoon. Now we see a little bit of a spike in the morning, and then it's just kind of it stays pretty steady over the afternoon. There's not really that heavy spike in PM peak anymore. It's pretty consistent. So you know, volume is probably, you know, about where it is, but the distribution of that has changed. Is what we're seeing, and that might just be the new norm as people are working remote or working from home. Maybe they're taking their kids to and from school, or just, you know, their activities have changed a little bit from what they were in the past. So.
Thank you.
Greg, real quick, do you have a tentative date for the public meeting on the North Main Street Road Diet? As it scheduled to close spring 2022?
We don't yet. We're waiting for some feedback from the town council and town manager, just to, you know, iron out those dates. But we should have those fairly soon, and then we'll obviously get that information on the website.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? Please just unmute yourself, and then I'll open up to the public.
Hey, Greg. It's Paul Hogan here. Thanks for going through that and going through some of the details. I guess one of the big concerns early on that I guess constituents had was the throughput times from Bishop's Corner to the center. I'm sure you're tracking that, but do you have an idea of how much it's increased? And I guess additionally, have you had feedback from some of the crews who do plowing, because it's a little different the way they're plowing this setup? And do you see any negative kind of feedback or impacts there? Because it's a little different, and it seems like there's a lot of snow in that center turn lane, and they do north south before they do that. And has that have you gotten feedback on that? Thank you.
Sure. So with regards to travel times, that's something that we have been looking at. You know, they'll vary from anywhere between 3 to 6 minutes is kind of what we're finding for both northbound and southbound. It really depends on how you hit those lights. But, you know, those are pretty similar to what they were in the 4-lane configuration. We haven't noticed significantly longer times, you know, to get from Farmington Avenue up to Albany. So that's been encouraging. You know, we'll continue to do speed trials, you know, various times, primarily focused on the PM afternoon commuting periods, but you know, they've largely been pretty consistent. And then as far as the snow plowing, I think this most recent storm was probably the first one we had, but that's something that's probably, you know, part of the reason we wanted to let this trial go through the winter, was to get a full experience. You know, how that would work, how Public Works would handle it. You know, being the first event, they may go back to the drawing board and say, hey, you know what, let's do this slightly different. Let's try this. You know, it could be a process. So they may try something different the next time. I'm not sure how they did plow on Friday. but we can certainly reach out to Public Works, get some feedback as well. Obviously, we've been doing that with our first responders, feedback for emergency response times. So we certainly want to get Public Works input on the snow maintenance as well.
Yeah, with that, have you had, can you, I guess, share the feedback from first responders?
Overall, it's been pretty positive. I think they like having that center lane. The traffic basically peels off to the curb, and they got a straight shot down the middle. We haven't heard any real issues that they've had being able to navigate through the corridor. So I overall I'm pretty pleased with it.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Greg.
Yep.
All right. Anyone else, members of the public or commission, free to speak. Please just state your name when you start speaking. Thank you.
There aren't any more commission members. This is Tony. I can speak as a member of the public and on behalf of BCO and Transport Hartford.
Yep, go ahead, Tony. Just state your last name, Tony.
Yeah,
Thank
this is Anthony Sharolis, Cherolis. Resident of Hartford, but work on transportation and road safety issues in the Metro Hartford region. I have been very interested in the North Main Street project, specifically since it was first proposed, and CROG had done a study on that corridor and proposed several options. The demonstration project that's in there now, I really do appreciate that it is a safer installation than what was there before, with multiple lanes in each direction, which was unsafe for all road users, and just encouraged pretty terrible driving behavior and made it very unsafe for pedestrians, people getting to bus stops, and people riding bikes. People crossing the street even, just basically getting from one side to the other was very unsafe with the previous installation. The road diet with the center turn lane, I appreciate that is an improvement. I don't see any significant drawbacks to the existing one relative to traffic flow, especially with the dedicated center turn lane pulling, slowing and stopping traffic out of the moving traffic. I do have some concerns that the road diet and the shoulders, not yet quite formal bike lanes, don't actually connect to Bishop's Corner or the West Hartford Center. Based on my experience with similar design in the south end of Hartford, several of these road diets with a continuous center turn lane, sometimes called a suicide lane. The traffic calming in the travel lanes occurs most of the time, but we have seen and experienced in Hartford, right next door, that the center turn lane gets used inappropriately for speeding and racing and high-speed passing, unless there's a periodic disruption or center island. So the demonstration project doesn't have that. It actually has a wider center turn lane than travel lane, which encourages using that center lane for travel and high-speed passing. So I appreciate that it is safer than it was, but I think there's still room to improve that design for safety for all road users. I'm really encouraged by the survey results, with 2/3 of the respondents saying that they would like to see the demonstration project made permanent. I also, just flipping through it now, noticed that the metric that people are most interested in is safety. They're not, the metric that they're most interested in is not throughput. It is not travel time. It is not traffic impacts to neighboring streets. It's safety. So I think the demo project really did have a significant positive impact to safety for all road users. I'd like to see, a road crash comparison. I know that's a complicated thing to do right now, as traffic patterns have been so impacted by the pandemic. But if there is an apples to apples comparison that can be made, it would, I think, like several other interventions that have been proven in other places to be very positive, I think the West Hartford road diet would have similar data. So yeah, I think it's great. It has a little bit of room to improve, and I would love to see it connected to the actual destinations on the north and south ends of that corridor.
Thank you, Anthony. Greg, did you want to follow up on that?
No, Tony, I appreciate the feedback. Certainly those are things that we're looking at with our consultant. Certainly reviewing crashes. What we found so far is that I think overall the crashes are down, whether that's attributable to lower volumes or not. Maybe perhaps a little bit, but we're seeing different types of crashes. We're seeing more, rear ends, and they're lesser severity than we've had in the past. So that's certainly an improvement. So I think we're trending in the right direction, which is encouraging.
And then, anyone else? Questions on the North Main Street Road diet? The host, I did get a request on an email. One of the call-in users is muted. Do you mind unmuting? I'm assuming it's call-in user 4.
Hi, yes, yeah, I'm sorry. It wasn't showing their full numbers. That's what I was delayed by. They may just have to dial *6. I don't think WebEx will actually let me unless it's
So press *6 on there.
Yeah, the caller themselves will have to.
Okay. I'll give that caller a moment to press *6. Any other questions aside from that caller?
I just want to add one comment. Traveling on North Main Street a lot since the road diet was instituted, and walking along the street and also bicycling along the street. I just have to say, I would be stunned if it was determined that the road diet should not continue. Because I think, there's been no disastrous backup problem. I always watch to see what's happening with the platooning, and the way the signal timing was changed. You get everybody through that Fern Street light. I've watched the traffic entering and exiting the American School for the Deaf, and there's always an opening between platoons. People sometimes have to wait a while. So I just want to say that if, as you do your more in-depth analysis, if there's a feeling that the road diet's not working, I think you should reevaluate, because all the signs on the ground are it's working very well. So just wanted to throw that in.
Daniel, this is Jay Stange. I'm unmuted now.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. And thank you, Jay. We can hear you as well. And, Greg, I never noticed Adirondack chairs in the corner of Fern and North Main. I don't know if that's a new addition for the house, or they just felt comfortable enough to put chairs outside. So that was my visual cue for traffic safety.
I have feedback. So they're my neighbors, and it's the first time I met them because they were out there sitting, and they have wonderful feedback about the whole road diet. So they were comfortable enough to sit out there, and I introduced myself, and it's made a big difference in the community here.
Yep.
On this corner, and I know that it's huge.
Yep. Thanks, Paul. I'm glad. Caller 4, do you mind stating your name? Do you have any questions as well?
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. This is Jay Stange. That's S-T-A-N-G-E, just like strange without the R. And I'm a member of Bike West Hartford, and I live in West Hartford at 177 Auburn Road. I wanted to thank the commission and Greg for being here tonight. Thank you, everybody, for giving me a chance to ask a couple quick questions. Greg, I wanted to just say through the chair to you, thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate your willingness to come out on a Monday evening and present these results. I just want to say that from the perspective of a Bike West Hartford member and a resident, I'm really, really encouraged by this survey data. And I think that I did the quick math. It's 66% in support of the road diet. And I think that Tony Sharolis already did a really good job pointing out that I think it's clear from our review of the survey, which we were just able to do tonight, that the public is really in support of what they see as increased safety, dramatically increased safety on the road. So thanks so much for being here tonight, for presenting this data. My question has to do with future planning. I understand that there may be some discussion in light of a successful road diet about making the lanes that are currently considered as buffer lanes into permanent bike lanes. I understand that that's on the table as a discussion item, but one of the things I want to check in with you about is if you've had any discussion with the consultant or with town staff about what it is that's going to determine ultimately the objective success of this road diet. What is the key numeric point that you guys are going to use to decide this is successful? That's my first question. And then my second question is, what have you guys seen so far in early data? It's encouraging that there are less and less severe crashes on North Main so far, but what have you guys seen in terms of Mountain Road and Trout Brook overflow impacts from this diet? I for one, find this road diet to be so successful that I actually go out of my way to drive on it with my truck when I go north and south in West Hartford now. It's such a pleasant place to be. And I'm wondering if you guys have seen any negative impacts at Trout Brook or Mountain. And thanks for letting me have the long question. I tried hard to get in here tonight, and I'm glad I finally made it. Thanks, everybody.
Sure. Thanks, Jay. I'm glad you did. I appreciate that feedback. As far as diversion, I don't think we're seeing a tremendous amount. I think obviously Trout Brook Drive has capacity, can absorb a little bit of that. As Joe pointed out, it's a little bit difficult, with reduced traffic volumes due to COVID. So we're trying our best to grow those numbers, and make them what they compare them apples to apples as best we can to the pre-road diet conditions. So that's something we're continuing to work through. As far as crashes on Mountain and Trout Brook, we haven't gotten into that yet. That's something that we will be looking at. With help from the PD, but we're just not there yet. And then as far as the overall metrics, I think it's not going to be a numeric value or a score. We're not going to look, well, it needs to be a 75% or anything like that. I think it's going to be a compilation of basically those elements that we're asking about in the survey, impacts to safety, travel time, travel speeds, and it'll just be a comprehensive, analysis or review of those. I think the survey is a pretty strong indication of what the public feels, and all those major indicators are certainly pointing, in a positive direction, for the road diet to remain. To Sandy's point, I think we're getting a lot of good feedback about the changes, improvements to the environment, that it feels more comfortable for pedestrians, cyclists, even people driving that thing. Before had avoided it because they didn't like that jockeying back and forth up and down North Main Street. They're now returning and using it, feeling much safer travel speeds, and that they won't have people cutting them off to get around them and things like that. So all good positive trends, I think, overall.
Yep, thanks, Greg. Thanks, Jay. Any other questions or comments on North Main Street Road Diet before we move on to the Complete Streets Annual Report?
Yeah, Daniel, just one more quick follow-up from Jay Stange. Greg, I wonder in the evaluation that you'll do with first responders, one of the comments I had made early on in this process was that I thought the 12. Hi, Jay Stange, I have a quick follow-up.
Yeah, muted. Sorry, my mistake.
Jay, you broke.
Hi, can you guys hear me? I have a quick follow-up.
We can hear you now.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. My quick follow-up is on the 12-foot center turn lane, the two-way center turn lane. I have wondered if you guys have considered in a final permanent orientation a little bit narrower center lane, if that might be something that would inhibit users. I've found that driver behavior has a lot more to do with design and a lot less to do with instructions that are provided either in a pamphlet or a sign. It seems like road design is a better motivator for people's behavior. And so if we narrowed that center turn lane, I wonder if there's a way that you guys could evaluate the potential for that, possibly making it less likely as a passing lane if it's a little bit narrower. I understand that there are first responder concerns and we want to make sure that it's wide enough for them to get through. But I think that 10.5, 11 feet is pretty common in other roads with the same level of service. And so I wonder if we had a narrower turn lane in the ultimate orientation, if that might, as a design feature, inhibit center turn lane passers more than maybe pamphlets or signage. Thanks a lot for the questions, and I'll take my answers offline. Thanks very much, Chair, for the opportunity.
Just to respond to the center turn lane, obviously the 12-foot width that we have, that's already a deviation from the recommended width of 14 feet. So we did shrink it a couple feet. I'm not sure that we're necessarily comfortable going any narrower than that. We've talked with our consultant at length about it. I know it came up during some of the preliminary discussions before the trial was even implemented. At this point, I don't know that's something that we're going to really feel comfortable exploring. I think you need that width, especially with the amount of friction created when you have delivery vehicles, landscape trucks, things like that parked along that shoulder. You're forcing traffic into that two-way left turn lane. So it works out well to have that little extra buffer there, for people to not only make their turns but also to navigate around temporary blockages that might be occurring along the corridors.
Would you mind if, this is Tony, if I make a comment?
Tony, yeah, just state your last name as well.
Yeah, this is Tony Sharolis with Beachco and Transport Hartford. I as somebody who thinks a lot about design and behavior, I want to amplify what Jay's saying, that design is a very important decision to make when we're thinking about safety for our roadways, which is the highest priority based on the survey results. A center turn lane, 14 feet is a surprising standard to be considering. I know that the city of Hartford, right next door, in our zoning chapter, considers 10 feet to be a standard travel lane capable of city buses and trucks. And the center turn lane is a turn lane and not a speed travel lane. And the EMS response, as described, where vehicles pull to the side into the shoulder, and the EMS vehicle has a kind of a clear shot down the center turn lane doesn't rely on that turn lane being 14 feet wide, regardless of vehicle width or lane width. The lane width does definitely translate into what drivers feel is an appropriate use for that lane. And without physical impediments such as median islands, I foresee the center turn lane being appropriated for high-speed passing and reckless driving as an unintended use and an unsafe use for pedestrians trying to cross that street and other drivers trying to use that center turn lane as an actual low-speed to no-speed turn lane. So I would recommend a 10-foot or 11-foot center turn lane is more appropriate and would give much more room towards the shoulders without having to force curbs to move to have an appropriate sized bike lane or safe cycling shoulder.
And thanks, Tony. And just a reminder, Greg, I definitely want you to respond if you'd like, and then we'll move on to the next agenda item. But if once you're done, *6 is to mute yourself if you're a caller calling in. So *6 to mute yourself once you're done talking. Greg, go ahead.
No, I think just, kind of reiterate my response to Jay's comment. It's certainly something we can look at. It's certainly, it behaves differently than a travel lane, though, that center turn lane. So while the travel lanes are 10 feet wide, we're really hesitant to mess with the 12-foot width of the turn lane. I think there's other safety features that width provides you. That narrowing could have adverse effects. We'll leave it at that, but we'll certainly revisit that during the as part of the final recommendations of this study.
Yep. Thank you. And I'm reminded of a couple of homeowners in North Main Street with short driveways, and they have to back out into North Main Street. So that little room, there's a couple conversations I think the town had with homeowners on North Main backing into North Main, where that, so there's a lot to consider. So let's keep that for the public information meeting once we get close to that time as well. Next on the agenda is the Complete Streets Annual Report. This is a preliminary conversation. Greg, I don't believe you have the report completed yet, but if you have the opportunity to share some information with the commission on how the town did in calendar year 2021 regarding the Complete Streets agreement with the town and its intent to improve roadways for non-motorists and motorists as well, but make streets safer for everyone.
Sure, thanks, Daniel. That's something that we're just starting to prepare the annual Complete Streets report, summarizing all of our efforts over the past year, obviously. So I don't have any final data. The one thing that we did start to tabulate that this group would be interested in is bicycle routes and also bike lanes that we added over the past year. And this is measuring distance both on both sides of the roadway. Bicycle routes, these are our shared route facilities. With Sharolis, we added 2.16 miles. And then bike lanes, we added 4.4 miles of bike lanes this year. So I think that's a pretty good number. Certainly, on par or if not better what we've done in the past. A lot of that was fueled by, we had some grant funding through the Community Connectivity Grant Program to provide additional funds specifically for bicycle improvements. So that certainly helped and is largely the reason that we saw that kind of mileage. So that's on streets like, you alluded to it in your summary letter, Fern Street, Oakwood Avenue. We added some recently on Boulevard. We filled that gap between Trout Brook and Raymond. On Mountain Road, we actually, these aren't even included in those numbers, but on Mountain Road, where we had originally put down 4-foot wide bike lanes, and I know this particular group had a lot of feedback on that. We actually went ahead, eradicated those pavement markings and shifted them over a foot. We actually widened those bike lanes on the section of Mountain Road from, I believe it's basically from Fern all the way down to where it hits the curve into Sedgwick. So that whole section should be 5-foot wide bike lanes in that area. So some pretty good improvements on the bicycle side. And then obviously our sidewalk program, we're continuing to invest and try and maintain our existing infrastructure, and then as it's appropriate, fill in any gaps or requests that we receive to add new sidewalks. I think we're making some good strides there as well. We're going to try and wrap up the Complete Streets report by the 19th and present that to the Town Council Subcommittee, the Planning, Community Development, Planning, Economic Commission meeting on the 19th of January. So that's kind of our target. We're hoping to wrap it up at that point.
And just to reiterate, you're hoping to have this complete by January 19th, 2022?
Correct. Yeah. So next week and next Wednesday, we'll be presenting it to that subcommittee.
And where does that land publicly? On the website?
Yep, it'll be posted on the town's website. I believe if there's not a link on the engineering page, I think it resides under planning. That there's a Complete Streets page, but I can certainly get that information over to you.
Okay.
Is that available?
And can you repeat did you mention 4.4 miles of bike lanes added?
Correct. It's 4.4 miles of bike lanes, and again, that's both directions. So it's really 2.2 miles of roadway, assuming there's bike lanes on both sides.
Okay. Can we convert that to meters to make it sound higher?
I'll let you get your calculator out.
All right. Thanks for that. Any questions from the commission? Again, some early read on numbers for 2021. I don't know how others feel, but when I hear the mileage, look forward to bringing that number up. Maybe something the commission wants to discuss in February of target goals and milestones for roadways with bike lanes additions. Any questions from the commission for Greg? And then I'll open it up to the public. We'll keep this one shorter. We spent some time on North Main Street. So commission members, any questions for Greg?
I'm not going to say a question. I'll just make a statement to say this is fantastic having you here, Greg. This is just an incredible meeting and very thoughtful. Also, the questions and statements have been very thoughtful. So just a comment.
Yep, I echo that. Thanks, Colin. Anyone from the public? Star 6 to unmute yourself. Star 6 to go back on mute.
Yeah, hello, this is Ethan Frankel. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Ethan.
So Ethan Frankel, Bike West Hartford, and I wanted to thank Greg for being there as well. And I just wanted to, I didn't get to chime in on North Main Street road diet, and just wanted to add my observation at how fantastic the roadway is now, how much safer it feels to be in the car or to be on a bicycle or walking down the street, that street. It's amazing. And I just want to throw out there an idea, a comment that Matt Hart actually made during his first couple of months with the town when we talked about the North Main Street road diet. And he made the comment, and it was a great comment and sensible, that it seems like Trout Brook Drive should get the same, probably get the same treatment. Trout Brook Drive is a crazy 4-lane highway through the town, but add S curves to it, and it's even crazier than North Main Street in some ways. And it's interesting that there's not been a lot of diversion and the actual travel times are not much different. I would throw it out there that you'd probably find the exact same thing with Trout Brook, and that could become a safe roadway through town as well. And I just wanted to see if there could be any discussion among the town engineers about the possibility of Trout Brook Drive getting the same road diet treatment as North Main Street.
Thanks,
That's
Ethan. Take that comment back and certainly have that discussion. You know, I think it's a little bit outside the scope of the current project, but possibly something we could evaluate in the future.
Thank you.
Anything else? Otherwise, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Okay. Next, we have the neighborhood traffic calming program. Greg, this is your document, right? Or is it Todd?
No, this is one that the engineering division created. I think we presented it to the commission several months ago.
Yeah.
We got some feedback. We were finally able to incorporate the comments that you had, comments we heard from the town council as well. We shared the revised draft. We're hoping it's a final version. And again, we're going to present this to the subcommittee of the town council, community planning, economic development committee on the 19th as a staff report. We did present a kind of a summary overview of what some of those changes are. With their concurrence, we'll basically have that approved document and begin utilizing it.
Okay. Is the draft document available to the public?
It's not. We were waiting until the council approved it, and then at that point we'll look to get that information online and made available to the public. We plan to not only post the document, the program itself, but then as we go through it, anytime there's a request, evaluation, where each of those neighborhood streets falls in the process, we'll certainly publish that information. So not only the neighborhood can see it, but then also other neighborhoods within the community can also see, some of the challenges that other roadways neighborhoods might be facing, and how some solutions in one neighborhood might potentially apply to their neighborhood street as well. Okay.
If you don't mind, I want to give a recap to everyone, and then I have a couple questions, and I'll put up to the commission as well. The neighborhood traffic calming program is a program for the town to utilize and garner public feedback on steps that should be taken for roads that meet certain criteria based on traffic counts and what is the correct process or workflow to address these issues from an engineering side, design, and implementation. So in a way, it structures a process for the neighborhood streets, and gives it a very clear workflow. So if you're a resident, you would understand what are the steps, what might be any action as you as a resident to gain further participation from your neighbors on a road safety improvement, or what things the town looks at to move forward. The first draft version was sent by Greg maybe 5-6 months ago, maybe even longer than that, Greg. And then Greg has since revised them, but we did have some questions to Greg within that draft version and then even the final version. So one question I still have that you responded to, Greg, was, determining a time frame for, is the neighborhood traffic program successful? Say that on the 19th, town council approves this traffic calming program. Your response on a time frame is to I don't want to paraphrase, I just want to make sure, premature to define a time frame, and then the traffic calming program will be summarized annually as part of the Complete Streets annual report. My only concern with time frame and not having a marker for that is we're at the situation with the POCD 10-year plan, and there's not a lot of comfort without a time frame to determine success, right? If it's in 2 years, the Complete Streets report comes out and we talk about the traffic calming program and it says, oh, it's not working well, it doesn't require an acceleration of we need to make this better versus in 2 years we expect maybe 5-10 streets to come through this with maybe 1 or 2 results. Can you talk about a way we can implement a time frame for the draft version in this traffic calming program? That way we know, 2024, this program, we've had 10 streets go through it, nothing past the workflow. It's not working, right? And to really make sure it gets the spotlight it deserves and not pushed out for another year or 2 and then continue down that road.
Yeah, I think it's all going to depend on what the demand is and how many requests we receive, how many neighborhoods actually go through the process, how many improvements are actually implemented. So I wouldn't necessarily want to put a time frame on it. It may be a couple of years before we really get enough data, enough interest in the program to really make a determination if it's working or it needs to be revised and modified. The program does have language in there that we will continue to revisit it and adjust it as needed. So I'm not necessarily so focused on a time as much as actually using it, seeing we reviewed a number of different policies from neighboring communities. We did look at the one from Burlington, Vermont. I know you had referenced. Bloomfield just recently published there. So we've been looking at other programs that are out there, trying to take the best pieces of each of them. But until we really go through it, we won't necessarily know, if we hit the target points that we wanted to achieve with it. So it's just going to take time.
Right. But if you have five roads that come up and go through this process, a breakdown of all 5 of these made only to 60% of the program requirements and then dropped off. Within the Complete Streets report, as opposed to 5 came in, we implemented 1, I would request that if 5 come in, how far did they get in that process and get stuck? Because there may be there's no way to pilot this workflow on a street unless you've already done so. And if you have, please share it. But will this program work, or does every single street get stuck at the 70% mark no matter what? And part of my concern there is a component for this workflow of a survey for residents. COVID, life, everything happens, and surveys. I think 1,900 on North Main is fantastic, but we have a bigger population in town. So just the request that within the time frame or the Complete Streets report, we show the progress of the streets that were started this process. Where did they land? And then, granted, you'll have the success ones that make it through, but if they don't make it through, how far did they get and stop?
Yeah, and that's information that we plan to post on the website. We want to be transparent with it and and make it a tool, for the entire community. So we want people to be able to see, how they compare to another neighborhood, because if it really does take off like we anticipate it could, unfortunately there are going to be streets that the residents may feel very passionate about it. But it's just not going to meet the requirements. There's not a need there. So that's going to be ones where, that we're going to rely heavily on the program to say, there's not a need here. We need to focus our resources on other areas where there's a greater need and provide a bigger benefit. So, I think that's all information we'll want to post on the website. But again, it's going to take us some time to really calibrate it. There may be some different iterations of this policy. until we get it, fine tuned and working appropriately so that we're able to, implement these improvements in a practical manner where they make the most sense and provide the greatest benefit.
And then there's also a response from you related to so again, for the public and everyone on the traffic calming program, there's a point system. So different factors add a point, and once the points accumulate enough to take action, then the engineering department takes action. One question we did ask is the scoring criteria, which is on page 5, table 1, and this gave a points based on crashes, and the commission's response was it adding points based on proximity to like pedestrian generators, such as a school zone, as well as maybe a public library, and then having a higher point for those vulnerable user crashes. Your response was that the scoring criteria has been revised to put greater emphasis on crashes involving a vulnerable user, 1 point for each crash involving a vulnerable user. Can you break down the crash? So a motor vehicle crash, is that 1 point? And then a pedestrian or bicycle crash, is that now 1 point? Because the draft itself said up to 2 points, which I'm not sure what that means. Could you clarify that first?
Yeah, so in the scoring criteria, we have it broken down. That particular, there's several different components, speed, volumes, peak hour traffic. Crashes are just one component of that. So we can award up to, I believe it's 2 points for a crash. So typically, and I'm just going to pull up the document. I want to make sure I get it correct here. So just bear with me.
I can share my screen, Greg, if you're comfortable with that document and that.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, and again, we're looking at when we say the crash history, we're looking at crashes that are actually prevented, or preventable due to traffic calming measures. So if somebody, let's say they back out of their driveway and hit the parked car across the street, that's not going to be something that's going to trigger, points in this particular category, for the scoring criteria. We're looking at things that would be prevented if traffic calming features were implemented. So there is a range. If there's more than three or 5 crashes, you get a point. More than 6, you get 2 points. But then the way we've adjusted it is if there's a crash involving a vulnerable user, even if it's just one, that would automatically give it a point assigned to it. So a little bit heavier rating for those vulnerable users.
Okay, so if there's, help me understand this more. If a pedestrian was hit on a road, it would get 1 point, which would put it in the 0 to 2 bracket, right? And then for this project to actually register that point, though, would it need to be above 3 to actually lay down the scale?
So let's say you had the only 2 crashes occurred on this particular street that we're looking at involved vulnerable users. One a cyclist, one a pedestrian, 2 separate incidences. Even though you only have 2, they're both vulnerable users. That's 2 points, one for each of them. It doesn't matter if there's other crashes or how many. A crash involving a vulnerable user automatically scores 1 point.
So should this be reworded to for each crash involving a vulnerable user, 2 points will be assigned?
No, you're getting one point but that entire category, you're either 0, 1, or 2 points for crash history. So if there's 3 or 4 vulnerable user crashes, you're still only getting two points. We didn't want to adjust the whole scoring because it's still out of a 30-point scale. But I think if you had a street that had multiple vulnerable user crashes, A, we'd already be aware of it, and B, we'd probably already be looking at something, and probably would take a different path than this traffic calming program.
Well, I guess that's my concern, right? If some of these things are already captured, but we still have this document, we're obviously missing the puzzle pieces connecting at some point. Commission members, I feel even 1 or 2 points for a vulnerable user is still low, because in order to hit a pedestrian, either A, they weren't following traffic rules, which makes some sense, but the motorist would have to leave the motorist safety barriers, whether that's the two-way left turn lane, the driving lane, the buffer lane, and then get to the pedestrian. So they've gone past everything that we've put in place so far as road design, and now they're hitting the vulnerable user. I feel vulnerable users should still get a higher point than 1 or 2.
Well,
Just for my
Daniel,
feedback. Sandy, yep.
I think it does, like, if you look at this, crash history gets either 0, 1, or 2 points. And it gets 2 points if there are 6 or more crashes over a 3-year period.
Okay.
With
So I'm
the
reading
exception that if 1 or 2 of those crashes are vulnerable users, it would, like, if there are only 2 crashes, but they were both vulnerable users, it gets 2 points, which makes it equivalent to a location that has 6+ crashes.
Okay, so thank you, Sandy, and I'm glad everyone tolerated my disconnect for 10 minutes. So what you're saying, Greg, is I'm looking at this value scale. What you're referencing here is this point scale, correct?
Yeah, I misspoke. Out of 25, not 30. But yeah, we wanted to keep it capped at 25. And we didn't want let's say there was 4 or 5 vulnerable user crashes. We didn't want that to,
Okay. So you're looking at the far right row here. Yep. That's my disconnect. I jumped here into this row. And again, thanks everyone for dealing with me on discovering that. Sandy, you seem clear on this at this point. Does this look like a satisfactory addition?
Yeah, I think that was a good change to make, because it really adds to the emphasis on vulnerable user crashes.
Right. Okay. Any other questions from the commission on this document? And then I'll open up the public. And again, January 19th, Greg, this will be presented to the town council in a special meeting.
It's their community planning economic development subcommittee that meets monthly as part of their regular meeting. We did have a expanded presentation to the council subcommittee back in, it was either May or June. So we incorporated their comments now. So this would essentially just be a staff report, more of an update for them. We don't plan to go in depth, but we certainly want to present the changes and get their final concurrence before this goes live.
Okay. Thanks, Greg. Any other questions from the commission? Any questions from the public? And Greg, where will this document live on the town website?
It would most likely be under the engineering webpage. So go under departments, engineering, and then there's a traffic section, transportation and traffic, and we'd most likely add a page there. And I believe we plan to set up a separate, kind of like we did with road diet. There'd be a quick link to it, westhartfordct.gov/traffic calming, something like that. Takes you right to that page.
Okay. I'm going to move on to the next agenda item. I'll give 30 seconds if anyone wants to chime in on this last item for neighborhood traffic calming program. It's *6 if you want to unmute. Okay. Next on the agenda is 920 Farmington Avenue connectivity. And this was brought up by a couple residents as well. I was able to watch, thankfully, later the recap of the planning and zoning meeting, which was 4+ hours. But if you fast forward, if you want to see 920 Farmington Avenue on the recent TPZ meeting, it is 2 hours and 50 minutes into the meeting. You can see the presentation on 920 Farmington Avenue, and that is available online. You can go to YouTube and find that information. If you just search, let me just share my screen to help everyone.
Now that you've seen the rendering blend as well.
If you, just gonna share my screen real quick. And what I'm doing is just trying to give everyone resources since I have a computer screen to share. If you YouTube West Hartford, Connecticut Planning and Zoning, if you search that in YouTube, you'll look for the West Hartford Community Interactive. 920 Farmington Avenue was presented at the January 3rd meeting. And again, if you want to cut past the first 3 hours, it's about 2 hours and say 45 minutes into the meeting. You can watch the presentation on 920 Farmington Avenue. And with that, Greg, the question that was raised was, this is a great opportunity. I saw the meeting where they have bike racks at the facility right next to an outdoor space. But with the Trout Brook Trail being what it is and this interesting bridge right in front of there, what can be done to better connect this particular building and build the next step? Is there room for that to connect to the Trout Brook Trail in a more direct way, or make the sidewalk enhanced to accommodate cyclists as well? And I digest that for a minute, Greg. I know you've seen the plans plenty, and then I'll open it up for the commission as well on this one right away in the public.
Yeah, so I think it's something that we looked at. I think it would ultimately be up to the developer, but it's not without challenges. I think there's a retaining wall that's being proposed. So obviously there's some grading issues in the along that east side of the site, where they have a potential connection to the trail. There may also be some liability issues potentially, and they may not want a public trail connecting to a private development. With now maybe there's more trail users end up in the back of this of the site that just become a nuisance for them. So that's not to say there aren't ways that we could provide the connection. I mean, obviously it's great. It's virtually right next door. There will be sidewalk improvements along that frontage. We're looking to continue the complete street. The streetscape component that we have on other sections of Farmington Avenue all the way down to Trout Brook. So the decorative street lighting will be installed, the concrete paver sidewalk, and then there is a little, as you're aware, the Trout Brook Phase 5. There are those connection points that can bring you on and off the trail, before you actually get to the corner of Trout Brook and Farmington. So, I think we got to be a little bit creative and ways we can tie that in. I think that, just based on their proximity, anybody that resides there that wants to use the trail will have that option. But a direct connection, there's seems like there's some potential hangups and problems with that. But we can certainly have that discussion with the developer and talk through it and see if they want to evaluate it.
I would think people who move into a place like that, when they discover there's a trail so close, but not quite connected, would be really annoyed about, the planning process that resulted in that. Because I can't imagine anybody would find it a nuisance. When the trails were first built out in the Farmington Valley, property owners said, we don't want anybody to have access from our property to the trail, put a fence up. And then once the trail was in place, they were asking for gates in the fence because it really is an amenity. And I think it's important that the town talks to them about that and makes sure they're aware of it.
If, and I appreciate that comment, Sandy. One of the things that, I'd certainly encourage the commission, if that's something you feel strongly about, a letter, indicating that would, that could certainly go a long way, encouraging the developer to make that connection. I think that'd be if you wanted to endorse something like that, that would probably be, better received, and might go a little bit further.
Thank you.
Any others on that?
This is Ken Livingston. The one other thing, given the also subway that is now empty and some of the other buildings, I mean, you may end up looking that there's a behind those different properties, even pathway that could be grown or utilized at some point, that this could be one component of. And I know it's telling developers to provide a right of way or some easement or something, but just thinking about it long term, there may be some other opportunities that exist when probably more of those properties go through a reuse, that the back connection may be even more valuable, helpful to the town of rerouting people right to the center. As the trail gets heavily used, you're not going to want them turning up and then biking up Farmington Avenue on the sidewalk, and that's the only option you're going to have along that route at this point. So maybe that should all go in our letter.
Sounds like Ken should write the letter, draft the letter.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Should we discuss the letter at the February meeting? I know we're running up against time here.
I think it's something to act on now.
Yep. So does anyone want to make a motion to write a letter to the developer to include connectivity to the Trout Brook Trail? And first, I want to open it up before we jump into that. If anyone makes a motion, keep your, anybody from the public have any input on this before we jump to that item, because I think the public is important here as well. And I'll give it 20 seconds for someone to hit *6 if they need to.
Yeah, this is Ethan Frankel. I just wanted to thank the commission for looking into this. I think it's really important, and nice job by all of you to be considering what could be done with the town with this, and for everybody in town. Thank you.
And I think the question I would have is, and maybe Greg, you could weigh in on this, is whether we would address a letter to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission, or would we address something to the developer?
I would suggest you correct, address it to the Planning and Zoning Commission as a recommendation of your commission that they, have the developer at least evaluate it. Not, I don't know what if they could really force them to do something like that, but at least it's worth taking a look at and seeing if there is viability there. Maybe to Ken's point, maybe there is some future improvements that can be made along some of those neighboring properties as well. But yeah, you'd hate to miss that opportunity. So
yeah, Ken, you brought up a really interesting point with the subway and some potential changes that might happen to those buildings as well. Take people off street right into the center would be great.
Well, I would make a motion then that the commission would draft a letter to be sent to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission expressing our strong recommendation that the Planning and Zoning Commission work with the developer to create some kind of connection to the Trout Brook Trail that's being built there, with an eye to the future as to how the trail could be extended into the center.
I'll second that motion.
All right, all those in favor, say, or raise your hand or say aye.
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 Aye. All right.
Aye.
Anyone against, say nay. All right. So the commission will draft a letter to the town council. Thankfully, this is a recorded video presentation, so we can jump back to Sandy's best summary for the request for planning and zoning to work with the developer on to connect to the Trout Brook Trail with an eye to the future for access behind the buildings or a workable solution. Ken, gonna ask, would you take a stab at the draft here for this letter?
Yeah, I think it's two phases. It's one, the at least direct connection, but looking at a longer term perspective.
Yep.
There's also some value there. I was just looking at the property and trying to figure out, without seeing parcel lines, who owns what.
Yep. Thank you very much, Ken. Thanks, Greg, for the direction, and Sandy as well. And then, yeah, getting the bike facilities up to North Main Street would be ideal. Okay. Any other comments on that? And Ken, are you, just to kind of make sure we're on the same page, for the connectivity piece for planning and zoning, are you thinking about how we could look at bringing off-street trail to North Main Street, or are you specifically focused on this development? Because I think the future would be all the way up to North Main Street, correct?
At this point, I think it's appropriate just to talk about this application to planning and zoning, and you can reference future connections and thoughts, but I think it's appropriate to,
Okay.
as it relates directly to this development, and focus it on that.
Okay. Yeah, let's make sure to reference the future as well, as Sandy said. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, Greg, you're free to jump the child duty, so thank you so much for joining. I want to let Greg leave. We have a few more items left on the agenda. We should be wrapping up shortly, but Greg, again, thank you for joining the commission meeting today. Thank you for fielding questions from the commission as well as the public, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate the dialogue, the feedback, and for this some great takeaways. Thank you all. Have a good night.
You're welcome. Next on the agenda is the calendar year 2022 schedule. So we have finalized that. I want to read out the dates for everyone on the call to make sure that we're all aware. If you need to, mark the calendar. So we have January 10th, which is today, February 7th, March 14th, April 11th, May 9th, June 13th, July 11th, August 15th, September 12th, October 11th, November 14th, and December 12th. They're all on a Monday except for that October meeting, which is on a Tuesday. The next meeting, we don't have a scheduled town council member in attendance. Dan mentioned possibly inviting Board of Ed to a later meeting. As a commission, there's a couple things coming up in February, so I want to talk about maybe 2 agenda items first before we talk about February's meeting. So February, as you know, myself, my position is open as chair as well as my seat, and my term has ended in a sense, so I will not be seeking a renewal for term. They have not appointed a new commission member. That is actually happening tomorrow night on the 11th with town council. So a new member will be appointed to fill my seat tomorrow night. No one has been chosen as chair, so the February meeting will hopefully elect a new chair. I may kick off that meeting and introduce the new commission, and then we could vote on a new chair. In addition to that, Sandy Fry has submit a resignation to step down from the commission, so there'll be another seat open as well. So myself will be appointing a new seat tomorrow, and then there'll be another seat open for Sandy. Any questions on
and I'm kind of hoping that they'll fill my seat tomorrow also.
Okay.
I suggested they do that. I reached out to the town clerk's office to make sure they knew council was considering at least one appointment tomorrow.
Okay. Sandy, when you're out, you're out.
I said my resignation was effective upon the appointment of someone to my seat.
Yep. All right, so that leaves February meeting a little bit of action packed on commission shuffling. I think what we have up for discussion in February is what does the commission want to work on calendar year 2022? We did a nice job in December recapping what we did in 2021. With the Complete Streets report, we get a reading of where we stood in 2021 overall so far as road mileage. But do we want to add for the February meeting, number one, new appointments to new commission members or commission member. Number 2 would be appoint a new chair. So those items first. And number 3 would be that what does the 2022 look like for the commission, and who should we invite to that meeting?
Yes. Yes to the first. I don't have an answer to the who yet, other than town council members.
Yeah.
I wonder at the same time, while it may be beneficial to just have an open invitation, we don't focus on inviting anyone else, especially with some new commission members. There may be some sort of housekeeping and updating and getting them up to speed, and maybe almost an internal focus for that one.
Yeah.
I agree with Ken. I think to have a brand new chair with outsiders that we're going to have to kind of interact with, it might be much.
Okay, and we'll leave it February open discussion for 2022. Does that still work for everyone as a commission to talk about what our goals for 22 are? Just the whiteboard style.
I think if we keep it wide open, that it is that, and we set that expectation that you can bring 5 things that are goals. So
Yeah.
And more the storm than the norm.
Yeah. What kind of storm are we talking about here, Colin? Rainstorm, brainstorm?
Brainstorm.
Brainstorm. That works for me. Any other commission members comment on that? And I have public input is here, so if you're a caller, more than welcome to jump in. *6 to unmute yourself. Okay. We will do that, and with that concludes our meeting for the West Hartford Pedestrian Bicycle Commission. Please note that this meeting is recorded and will be available on YouTube through West Hartford Community Interactive. And watch yourself, pick up any items you might have missed. Perfect for the motion to write a letter to Planning and Zoning to be able to jump back to that point in time. And thank you everyone for this evening. Have a great night. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2022 and stay warm.
Thank you, Daniel.
Good night.
All right.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Right on.
And everyone.